On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, there's a new wave of ship attacks in the Black Sea. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So at the end of 2025, we have been covering a series of attacks that were taking place up in the Black Sea by Ukraine against Russia. At the same time, Russia was attacking Ukrainian ports and hitting ships in those ports. Well, things have escalated coming into January. We've had a wave of attacks, at least 8 ships so far attacked this year. We're going to break it down and talk about what this means. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. This story over at G-Captain by Reuters: drones hit 3 tankers in Black Sea as Kazakh oil production falls 35%. 3 Greek-managed oil tankers were hit by unidentified drones in the Black Sea on Tuesday as they were on their way to load crude at a terminal on the Russian coast. The attacks come as Kazakhstan's oil production, most of which is export, about 80% comes through this terminal, cratered in early January. Back in December, we saw the warning on the wall. Matter of fact, Lloyd's List had this story back on 18 December. Black Sea security has materially deteriorated, talking about the IMO Secretary General Arsenio Dominguez, who's calling for a halt to the attacks and offered to support any negotiation that would protect shipping in the region. Now, these attacks come after a series of attacks that marked an escalation between the confrontation between the two nations. Back at the end of November, we saw a series of attacks by Ukrainian Sea Baby drones against a pair of tankers, and then another attack against a third tanker in the Black Sea. In mid-November, November 17th, the Ukrainians staged attack against a Russian-flagged tanker in the port of Rostov-on-Don. 5,000 deadweight ton vessel, the Valery Gorchov, which was struck at about 0100 hours on that day. 2 crew members were reported to have died in the attack, with 3 more injured. EOS Risk Group Head of Advisory Martin Kelly said the security environment for commercial shipping in the Black Sea has materially deteriorated. Any incident affecting any vessel is, quote, now assessed as a realistic possibility. Even those that are not flagged by Russia, not affiliated with Moscow, face meaningful risk, he said, thanks to misidentification or collateral damage from missile strikes. I should note that these attacks are not restricted to the Black Sea. We had an attack on a tanker, the Quendrel, which just recently ran aground. Again, the weird coincidence here. This ship was attacked out in the middle of the Mediterranean, but at the beginning of January, the ship runs aground off the coast of Turkey. But the attack in the Mediterranean, conducted by drone strikes. We're not sure how many, a series of drones dropping explosives on board the ship. They targeted the ship's crane and manifolds from which to do ship-to-shore transfers. This would have precluded the ship from being able to conduct replenishment operations and transfer cargo to other ships. Plus, there is now a report out that the ship had armed guards on board from the Wagner Group. That is that kind of armed militia group that Russia has used overseas in the past. We have a series of reports of attacks now. This one on 7 January, the Palau-flagged Suezmax Elbis was struck while en route to a port in the Black Sea from Singapore. Vessel ownership and flag changed back in November. The Russia-bound tanker was reportedly attacked on Wednesday while sailing off the Turkish coast. Here's the marine traffic on the Elbis, a 159,000-ton tanker, 21 years old, 274 meters in length. That's nearly 900 feet in length. And then we have a series of attacks on 9 January that result in the death of a seafarer on board a bulker. This is the EOS Risk Group assessment of that. On 9 January 2026, according to Deputy Prime Minister Kuleba, Russian forces reportedly carried out drone attacks on 2 foreign-flagged civilian vessels operating in the Odessa region. The vessels, the Wal-K, flagged St. Kitts and Nevis, and en route to Chamorsk to load grain, and Ladana, flagged in the Comoros Islands and carrying soybeans near Odessa port, were struck, resulting in 1 Syrian crew fatality and 1 injury amid a reported escalation of attacks on ports and maritime infrastructure in the region. Here's Ladana, bulk carrier, 31 years old, flying under the flag of Comoros, 22,000 tons, about 157 meters in length. Wal-K, a 32-year-old freighter sailing under the flag of St. Kitts and Nevis, about 8,000 tons in length, little over 114 meters. So not very large vessels, but again, subjected to attack either in or around the ports in Ukraine. Then we have this 12 January report from EOS. On January 12, 2026, at an unspecified time, Russian drones struck two foreign-flagged civilian vessels near the Ukrainian port of Chornomorsk in the Odessa region. A Panama-flagged tanker awaiting a vegetable oil cargo was hit in the superstructure, causing a fire and injuring one crew member, while a San Marino-flagged bulk carrier departing with corn was also damaged, but continued its voyage with no injuries reported. This is the Panama-flagged ATA Voyager, 17-year-old freighter capable of carrying about 9,600 tons, a little bit over 117 meters in length. She was the one loading sunflower oil and had one injured crew member on board. Blue Bead, general cargo vessel, 28 years old, sailing under the flag of San Marino. San Marino, if you don't know, is a micronation located up in northern Italy, carrying capacity of 29,000 tons, little over 170 meters. Ship was loading grain. Here's the Lloyd's List report from 13 January. Black Sea attacks intensify with 3 tankers hit. 3 ships were attacked on January 13th. Off Novorossiysk. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize. I've been trying my best to bone up on my Russian, Ukrainian pronunciations. 2 near the Caspian Pipeline Consortium. At least 2 further vessels were hit in attacks on Odessa last night as the conflict in the region intensifies. Here are the ships in question. At least 3 of these 4 we know were attacked. Delta Supreme, Liberian-flagged crude oil tanker, 14 years old, 159,000 tons. Delta Harmony, also Liberian flagged. Both of these are with Delta tankers. We know that this ship was damaged. 17-year-old crude oil tanker, 157,000 tons. The other ship damaged was the Matilda, a Maltese flag, 17-year-old, 112,000 ton tanker. And then the 4th ship we believe to have been attacked is the Marshall Islands 8-year-old 157,000 ton Freud. If the ship was not attacked, I would blame its mom, or potentially the issue had to deal with sex. I mean, who names a tanker Freud? I mean, seriously, you named a tanker after Sigmund Freud? I mean, if I was naming ships, I would be naming them after really cool stuff. I mean, some awesome stuff. I don't know, but it definitely wouldn't be named after Sigmund Freud. Hey, if you got a good ship's name, put it down below in the comments. I'd be interested in hearing what you want your Dark Fleet tanker to be named. I have imagined we'll get some good comments here. These attacks are significant. Go back to that Reuters story we talked about in the beginning. The attacks on tankers in the Black Sea could increase both shipping and insurance costs for those seeking to load oil at Russian terminals, which handle more than 2% of the global crude. What's interesting is this terminal in particularly. This terminal is a loading point for around 80% of Kazakh crude destined for international markets, according to 8 sources who spoke to Reuters on conditions of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the situation. A Ukrainian drone hit one of the 3 main CPC moorings at the terminal located near the port of Novorossiysk on November 29th. Oil and gas condensate output in Kazakhstan plunged by 35% between January 1 and January 12 compared to December's average, a source familiar with the data told Reuters, adding that drop was mainly due to export constraints via the Black Sea terminal. Oil and gas condensate output in Kazakhstan plunged by 35% between January 1st and 12th compared to December's average, a source familiar with the data told Reuters. What this means is that we could see a break or a disruption in the amount of oil coming out of Central Asia, Kazakhstan, through the pipeline that emerges on the Black Sea. This is not just Russian oil. This is Central Asian oil, Kazakhstan oil. And if Kazakhstan can get its oil out, that's going to be a problem because now the Ukrainians are targeting tankers that are potentially carrying not Russian oil, but Kazakh oil. And that has a potential to widen this entire conflict. All I got to say is something we've been saying for 4 years now, since this war started back in February of 2022, that the maritime dimension of the war between Russia and Ukraine is not fully understood. It has a massive impact on global shipping, both in terms of oil, diesel fuel, grain, sunflower oil, you name it. I mean, Russia needs this Black Sea exit to get food, fuel, and fertilizer out, the 3 Fs. need to get them out. Ukraine needs it to get its grain out. They both need it to sustain their economies. And what we're seeing now is pure economic warfare being waged against each other. But the target here are commercial ships not flagged in any of their countries. We're not seeing, the Russians slapping Russian flags on their ships, because that does no good. Matter of fact, one of the things the Russians were doing was putting foreign flags on their ships so they wouldn't be targeted, because the Ukrainians were targeting Russian flag vessels. Now it looks like the Ukrainians have, pulled that away and are targeting any vessel that are going in and around those ports. There's a lot of information flowing out here, the accuracy of which is going to be questionable at times, because both sides are pointing fingers. The Ukrainians are doing it to the Russians are doing it to the Ukrainians. There's a lot of questions about false flag attacks. Did the Russians stage this attack to incite public opinion? Is it the Russians, the Ukrainians staging these attacks on their vessels, putting the guard down so that the Russians can attack? I don't know. All I do know is that ships and merchant mariners are caught in the middle here. And unfortunately, no one's coming out of here with clean hands. And that's just the nature of war. I hope you got something out of this episode. I know you didn't enjoy it, because it's not a very enjoyable episode when I start talking about ships being attacked and merchant mariners dying. However, if you can, really appreciate if you support the page. How do you can do that? The best way to support the page is subscribe. Subscribe and like. If you wouldn't mind, please do so. Helps the page get out there. We're definitely increasing, almost at 600,000 subscribers. Amazing. I remember when I had 130 something subscribers when I first started. So it's just an amazing ride so far on this channel. But please subscribe and like, hit that bell so be alerted about new videos when they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media. Don't forget to put that comment down for what would you name your Black Fleet, Dark Fleet tanker. Mine's not Freud. I can tell you that much right now. It's not going to be Freud. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do it? You hit the super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. Until our next video or our next tanker blows up in the Black Sea, which is just distinctly possible it's going to happen. We either got tankers blowing up in the Black Sea, we got the Americans grabbing Dark Fleet tankers out in the Caribbean and North Atlantic, we've got the Chinese running in the ships down in the South China Sea, we've got the Europeans grabbing ships coming out of the Baltic. Man, there's a lot of ship going on around here. Until the next episode, this is Sal, signing off.